It's time to feel what you've been bottling up. Life in rural America isn't easy. The long hours, the constant pressures, the demands of the land, livestock, and family, it all takes a toll. We're tough and we've got grit, but somewhere along the way, toughness started meaning bottling up emotions and powering through. But here's the truth. That strategy, it's not working and it's poisoning us. Maybe you've noticed and maybe you haven't, but the numbers don't lie. We're breaking down and it's showing up in our bodies, our relationships, and in the rising suicide rates in agriculture. You don't have to carry any of it alone. There's another way. If you're ready to stop being weighed down and start moving forward, my one-on-one good movement guidance is now open. Visit the link in the show notes to learn more and see if one-on-one guidance could be for you.
I'll carry you, you carry me, we'll help each other through it. Come on and say good movement draws good movement.
Welcome to Good Movement Draws Good Movement, the podcast where farmers, ranchers, and rural folks can grow relationally through awareness, understanding, and effective communication. Hey, it's T. I'm your host, and I, along with my guests, will be covering topics related to drawing good movement. Things like self and social awareness, brain science, positive psychology, extending grace, and so much more. We'll share tools that can help you understand why you are the way you are, why others are the way they are, and how you can use that to step out of self-told lies with grace and compassion to draw good movement in conversations, relationships, and life in rural America. Let's go draw good movement. Welcome back to the Good Movement Draws Good Movement podcast. This episode is a little different in a couple of ways. First of all, for all episodes except the ones with Tom, and even the ones with Tom, we have at least a loose idea of where we're going to go. But for all other episodes, I have an outline for the show so I don't start rambling and get off track. I do not have an outline for this episode. And it's different also because this episode is sort of an announcement, a life update. It's very personal. But if you tuned in last week, you know that we talked about pain and how pain is not a bug, but rather a feature of life. And there's opportunity in pain, and we can find meaning in pain and all the things. And I want to start off by saying that I don't think that it was by accident that I listened to that podcast episode that inspired my podcast episode where I heard that quote that pain is not a bug, it's a feature. And I don't think it's an accident that I also dove into that and leaned into it and journaled on it and studied more about pain, consumed the book Finding Meaning by David Kessler, because on December 19th of 2024, I went in to have a mammogram because I felt a lump in my left breast. The mammogram was followed by an ultrasound. Even though the mammogram looked good, it was followed by an ultrasound because I felt something. And the ultrasound looked a little bit ominous. So that led to a biopsy, which, by the way, if you've never had a biopsy of your breast, I do not recommend. 0 out of 10 stars or 0 out of 10, whatever the rating system is. 0. It's uncomfortable and then it's very itchy. And then when you get the results, if they're not what you're hoping for, it's even worse. It adds insult to itch and injury. And that is what happened on December 26th of 2024. The radiologist called and he said, I hate to be the Grinch, but your biopsy results are in and it shows cancer. I grew a cancer. Thankfully, the cancer that I grew is grade 1, which means it's slow growing. It is hormone receptor positive, which means there are more straightforward modes of treatment for the type of cancer that I grew. So, as of this recording, I have not met with my surgeon. That happens tomorrow. But it looks like, at least for now, with the other testing that I've had done, I've had an MRI and then a second ultrasound based on what the MRI showed. But from what we know right now, it looks like I will only need surgery and reconstruction to get rid of the cancer that I grew. And I say that I grew a cancer because I don't really like how I have cancer or I got cancer sits. It just doesn't sit well with me because cancer is not like influenza or something else that it's not contagious. You can't catch it. You can't get it. You grow it. So I grew a cancer. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that right now. As you know, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, I am a huge fan of Dr. Gabor Mate. I binge listened and read, I'm going to say binge consumed because I read some and I listened to some. I binge consumed all of his books. And specifically in his books, When the Body Says No and The Myth of Normal, he talks a lot about diseases like cancer and autoimmune diseases and things that aren't necessarily contagious, like your COVIDs, your influenzas, your norovirus, which has been rampant here, by the way, this winter. Also, 0 out of 10 recommend norovirus. But he talks about how the way that we process our emotions or don't can affect our health long term. And I can't prove this, but I have been a lifelong repressor of anger. Just shove it down. Let's not be angry. It's not that big of a deal. It is what it is. Just ignoring and denying my anger my whole entire life. So I can't prove it, but I would not be surprised at all if my doing that provided the fertile soil for this cancer to grow in. And I also can't prove what I'm about to say, which is the fact that it is low grade, so slow growing, and potentially could be just treated with surgery. Again, I don't know at this point, but that's my hope and my prayer because I absolutely do not want to have to endure chemo and or radiation. But the work that I have done over the last 2 years in acknowledging not just my anger, but all my emotions and processing them and learning from them and treating my emotions the way that they're meant to be treated and using them the way that they're meant to be used. Again, I can't prove it, but I gotta believe, and I would not be shocked if by doing that, it helped with the low grade, slow growing situation. And I grew this cancer, and now it's time for it to leave my garden, so to speak. That sounds so silly considering where the cancer is, too. Anyway, that's beside the point. But then at the beginning of this recording, I said that I don't think it was an accident that I dove into and leaned into that idea that pain is not a bug, it's a feature. And while I don't think I've quite narrowed down the meaning in this particular pain, and honestly, when I got the news, I was more annoyed and frustrated that I had to go through this than I was feeling any other feeling. But this pain of having to go through this process, I'm not sure that I have the exact meaning for me yet. And I don't necessarily know if meaning from pain can be found until after you're kind of through it. Like we discussed last week in the podcast, I've been able to find meaning from my dad's death. And while I would not want to, I wish I didn't have to go through that and it was not a blessing, but I have been able to find meaning. And I'm holding on to that hope that I will be able to come to meaning through this pain sooner. So I guess the point of this whole recording is one, to let you know what's been happening here for the last few weeks. And two, just remind you that pain, it's a feature of life. We're going to endure pain, and holding on to that hope that there can be meaning from it, that we can learn something from it, that it's not a blessing, but there's always an opportunity. I just want to drive that point home. And three, the third point of this recording is to let you know that I will be keeping you filled in via the social medias and on the podcast as it seems fit, but more on social media because that's real-time sharing. But I'm going to take you on this journey with me, and we're going to draw good movement through it. And so with that, until next time, draw good movement. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you. If you found value in this episode, I'd love for you to share with others who might also benefit from tuning in. Share by word of mouth, send it in a text, take a screenshot and post it on social media, or share however you prefer. And if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, draw good movement.